Hello, folks, and welcome back to the Rugby Ascendant segment here on Chris Wyatt Africa and on the separate Rugby Ascendant program. It's a pleasure to have, once again today, my special featured guest. I think this is the fourth time we chatted this year. He's been very generous with his time, and I hope that's because he thinks he gets fair treatment on this program. That's none other than USA head coach, Eagles head coach, Gary Gold. Gary, how's it going there? Welcome back to the program.
Good, thanks, Chris. Good to be back. Yeah, thanks for the invite again. Always good to be on your show and chat to your friends and your listeners and audience. And yeah, thanks again for your support. Good to be back.
Well, and it's a good time to have you back because it's on a good note, too. A few weeks ago, a tough outing in St. John's. Probably a lot of things contributed to that. But then the marker was you had to get 14 points better because it was on aggregate to get that slot. And in Glendale, the boys really performed quite well. So we're on a high note here. The USA is moving on the 2nd and 9th of October to play Uruguay. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, we play them again here in Colorado, and then we travel down to Montevideo to play the return leg down there, which is going to be some challenge, that's for sure.
Well, that's a good point you're making there, Gary, because I think a lot of people who aren't familiar with rugby in Americas look at Uruguay. Oh, what kind of challenge is that going to be? They're nothing to sneeze at. These guys had a brilliant win over Fiji in the Rugby World Cup in 2019, and they performed really well in their pool stage, even though they just pulled away one win. They beat out Canada for the Americas 2 slot to get to the World Cup, and they performed quite well. So it's not a small task, is it?
No, and they're one of the countries that were targeted by World Rugby a number of years ago to give a lot of development and help to, and they're a country that's come on in leaps and bounds, and let's not forget, we beat them in 2018 to win the ARC, and only a year later did they come up to Seattle and beat us. So I mean the significant improvement in that year in them was very admirable, and that rugby is quite popular in Uruguay. Again, their neighbours Argentina and arch rivals are obviously a formidable rugby country, and they've played each other recently now as well. And Uruguay's rugby has come on in leaps and bounds. They're quite South American in their style of play. They've got very good outside backs, and they've got big, strong forwards, big red meat eating forwards, and and then obviously a lot of passion as well that goes with it. So it's going to be a very tough challenge for us. There's no question of a doubt about that.
Well, and I think that's important to note because, as I said, I think there's a lot of people. I don't want to say fair weather fans, but certainly I think if this tweet was actually from you, it's been attributed to you, mentioning the phrase keyboard warriors or something like that. I think there's a lot of keyboard warriors out there who are quick to jump in. And honestly, the St. John's game, I did live reaction commentary to it, and I was critical of some sloppy play and mistakes. But that's very different than attacking players and accusing a team of not having heart. So I think it's important to frame right now up front that people thinking that Uruguay is going to be a cakewalk really need to take a look at Uruguay's capabilities. They are a talented team, and they're going to bring it because they want that America's North #1 seed. They've never had it. No one's had it but the USA and Canada.
Yeah, exactly right. And I mean, you made reference to it earlier. I mean, in the 2019 Rugby World Cup, that win against Fiji was phenomenal. I mean, Fiji, again, the rugby supporters out there will know that what kind of players Fiji produce. They're formidable. They're big, strong, X factor players, and that was a game that people thought Fiji will roll over Uruguay. And I mean that wasn't the case at all. They've got some outstanding players. They've got a couple of players who are playing out in France. I mean, their scrum half Areta plays for Castres at the moment, and had an unbelievable game over the weekend, and he's a world-class individual. They've got a handful of world-class individuals who are plying their trade in France. So they really are a very good rugby team. And we're going to go into this series with a lot of respect for them.
Yeah, no, they're absolutely talented. We don't have you for a long time today because you're quite busy prepping for the upcoming test. But let me just, if we go back to the Canada series very quickly here and just cover a few things and kind of get your take on both games. The first one, I think a lot of people were like, ouch. And the second one, people were pretty stoked about. But the St. John's trip, with all the COVID restrictions and challenges, traveling to the maritime provinces, was going to St. John's, was travel consideration? Did it impact the team, or did you have enough time on the ground to get adjusted?
Well, it's a difficult question to answer. I mean, it wasn't the reason we lost the game. Let's put it that way. You know, and under no circumstances will I ever use that as an excuse. It wasn't an easy place to go to. It was you know, it's quite remote out in Newfoundland there in St. John's. But in saying that, you know, we actually travelled really well. We got there on time. The Canadian folk and the people of St. John's looked after us really well. So absolutely not at all. I mean, we were the masters of our own destiny. I mean, we started off the game really well, and you know, getting a try on the scoreboard within the first 4 or 5 minutes. You know, also by the route of a penalty try as well, which is unheard of. Not that, you know, somebody's going to give a penalty try away so early in the game. You know, were good signs for us. You know, and then. And I say this with a lot of respect towards our own guys, because I don't necessarily think that, you know, there was any intention in this. You know, there's no ways that I felt the guys weren't up for it. I felt the guys were really up for it. They worked very hard during the course of the week. And I don't know if it was just a number of things that compiled together, and there was just a bit of complacency that crept in, you know, and that complacency led to us making really basic errors at critical times, and we just gave, you know, Canada the momentum to get back into the game. And, you know, as we scored, we let them back into the game again. We didn't deal with a kickoff. We didn't deal with a restart, or, you know, we didn't exit properly, or, you know, we lost the line out, and, you know, just kept giving them back energy into the game. And, you know, before we knew it, we were 2 or 3 scores behind on the scoreboard, and then it was a difficult place to play comeback rugby from. So, you know, credit where it's due, but I mean, they gave us a proper wake-up call. There's no question of a doubt about that.
Well, I think that's a fair statement, and despite what a lot of people are saying, Canada earned that win. They brought it. They brought it that game. They earned that win, and I even said so when I was reacting to the game, very angry during the game that they were earning this. But I don't know. I wouldn't say we're jigs, but there were a couple things that I think for me were. Well, welcome to the new laws. That was one of them. That was kind of caught me off guard. I guess I wasn't paying close attention to World Rugby. And then the other one was, I think it seemed pretty clear to me that when Cam Dolan was taken out in the air and he went down and went out for a head injury assessment, it seemed as if we had all kinds of problems with our line out after that. Cam obviously is a stalwart there. It's kind of like looking at Victor Matfield. He pulls it down every time. And when he went out, we seemed to have a lot of trouble with the line out the rest of the game. Did I miss that, or did you guys notice that?
Yeah, we noticed that. Yeah, losing 4 or 5 lineouts in a row is quite noticeable. Yeah, so yeah, it did. It's interesting. I mean, that again, that you attribute that to Cam going out. I think it was it was almost like a bit of a comedy of errors. Again, quite surprising that Cam was taken out and in the air and a head injury, and to a guy who had already conceded a yellow card, and yet managed to stay on the field. So that was quite astonishing from us from the first point of view. But yes, you know, our lineouts did go awry. We did lose our way a little bit at lineout time, and again, you know, that's a growth point for us. You know, I mean, we cannot be reliant on one individual. No team can. You know, we shouldn't be. You know, and I don't think that we needed to be reliant on the one individual. But unfortunately, you know, that particular day, you know, everything conspired against us, and yeah, and you know, fair play. You know, I think let's just give credit to them as well. You know, when they sniffed a little bit of blood in the water and they saw that our lineout wasn't functioning that well, they did very, very well to keep heaping the pressure onto us. So, yeah, it didn't go well from that point of view. And again, you know, not winning primary ball at the lineout is always going to hurt you. So, you know, that hurt us. There's no doubt.
Well, there was another thing that almost like we're state bitten in some respects, and this is a new law that they're trying out for World Rugby, and I guess I didn't really fully understand it. So when an attacking team goes across and the official can't determine whether the try is there because they can't see the ball grounded, even with the TMO, they can't, and that happens frequently because of the angle and there's a pile of bodies in there. It used to be, it's always been a 5-meter scrum to the attacking team, which seems reasonable. You're not harshly penalized. The defending team doesn't give up a try. But now the new law that they're trying is that the defender gets a kick from the goal line. And I'm like, what's going on here? I saw this announced before the game. And then Canada kicks it out almost to midfield. 46 meters is a heck of a kick. And I think our guys were stunned, and Canada gets the ball, and a couple minutes later get a try. It's like essentially a 10 to 14 point swing. You don't have to comment. I know Rossi's already in hot water, you know, so I don't want to get anybody else in hot water. You don't have to comment, but I think a lot of us that are rugby fans were kind of surprised by that law, and we're kind of scratching our head because it seems an overly harsh penalty against an attacking team. And at least that's my take on it. But that also seemed to be kind of a turning point too. We seem to be a little discombobulated after that kick.
Yeah, it was a turning point, and I think your comments are very fair. Again, I don't personally buy into the understanding of that. Certainly not being held up over the try line. Again, on the one hand, we're being told that, there's a lot of focus towards, playing more of an attacking brand, and yet when you are trying to keep the ball in hand and you are held up over the try line, particularly if we thought that it was actually potentially a try, to then get double whammied by, not having an opportunity to scrum and be able to retain possession, but by being kicked back. And it just so happened that day, that just happened to be a win behind Canada as well. So that, that drove another nail into the coffin a little bit deeper. So, it's a strange law for me at the moment. I mean, it is something that I'm quite keen to get a little bit more understanding of from World Rugby, and and I actually have a call a little bit later today to try and understand that. But yeah, no, it was it was a strange turn of events, and just doesn't seem like we're doing ourselves any favors in rugby at the moment when we're bringing in laws like that don't make sense to the fans, don't make sense to the players, and don't really align with the intent of what we're trying to do, which is score tries and keep the ball in hand. So again, it was what it was. I mean, a week later, they had a goal line drop out, and we kicked a drop goal. So again, it swings and roundabouts, and I'm, as a famous person once said, Cowboys don't cry. So again, we rather take it for what it was, which is a really big learning curve, and quite a humbling experience to be brought down to earth the way we were. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't. I don't understand that goal line 22, particularly when you're carrying the ball. I understand it from other aspects, but I don't understand it from that point of view.
Well, I think another law change that people might be more amenable to, I'm not sure I'm liking this one either, but the 50-22. I mean, with the likes of AJ McGinty, we could probably take advantage of that. So maybe you like that one. I don't know, but that one's a little strange to me too. But you get to retain possession by kicking up the field on a bounce. That's an interesting one. And I also saw that in the game in St. John's. Like, that's interesting. I think we profited from at least once that game.
Yeah, I mean, again, with every one of these law changes, you'll suffer on the one and then you'll profit on the other. Again, it's just the logic behind it is that the thinking is that you're going to put more people back in the backfield, which is going to then allow you to run. But, that's not the case, because, in the opening weekend of the Premiership, there were 44 kicks in the game between Bristol and Saracens by half time. So,
wow,
and I think it crept very close to 60 or 70 for the whole game. So, in fact, actually, with the 50-22 is now encouraging more kicking when that wasn't the intention at all. But again, I mean, I can sort of understand that. I'm not as radically opposed to that one as I am about the goal line dropout, particularly from when you're carrying the ball over the line. But again, I will question why we're making changes for the sake of changes, and I'm not sure that the reason they want the changes are actually being brought out. So, for example, if the game wants you to kick less and carry the ball more, then why don't you just bring in a simple law change that if you kick the ball in field and the opposition catch it on the full, they can choose to run with the ball, or they can actually choose to take a scrum from where you kick the ball. That's just simply going to stop you from kicking the ball, or making you work harder to hit grass. So again, look, I'm preparing for a game against Uruguay. That's where my focus is at the moment.
Yep.
I'm answering your questions, but I don't want to give the impression that I'm losing sleep over law changes at the moment. I'm not. It doesn't necessarily make that much sense to me, but it is what it is.
Yeah, no worries. Let's put a button on that one, Gary. And that wasn't where we're trying to go with it. No, it's just I think a lot of people watching are puzzled by it. I think all of us are, but hopefully we'll see what happens. They're doing it Rugby World Cup qualifiers. That's the frustrating. But in the chat, a lot of people are saying it's good to see Gary on the program again. People happy to see you here once again. And then Fleshin said that now let's get to something we really want to talk about. This is what I want to talk about before I lose you for the day, and that's Glendale. And what happened in Glendale. Fleshin said it showed character to come back from that first game. I think it showed a lot of character, especially after some people made, I think, unfairly harsh criticisms of some of the players, which I think were unjust. And it's good to see that you guys came back. But before you say anything, and okay, in the interest of full disclosure, Gary, I'm biased. I'm very biased here. Of course, I'm an Eagle fan, and I'm a huge Hunka Germishuys fan. So, wow, a hat trick tries. He almost had a fourth try there, but that one was called back there. Let me ask you this question before you say anything about the game. I'm going to assume you're happy with Hunka's performance in that game.
Sure. I mean, anybody who's going to score a hat trick, I'm going to be very happy with it. I'm very happy, as you said earlier in the introduction, I'm very happy with the character of all the players, and it's let me be clear, it's the players who deserve the credit. Yeah, Chris, I just want to touch on something else you mentioned as well, and around the criticism. I have absolutely no problem with criticism, none whatsoever. Criticism towards us as a group over the St. John's game is absolutely fair, and we also need to be big enough to be able to accept that criticism. I know from my personal point of view, I took responsibility for that game, and it wasn't good enough. The only issue that I have is when it starts becoming personal, because at the end of the day, it's a game. You know what I mean? And these players, I agree we didn't play well enough. I agree we did some things that were wrong. I agree I think we lost composure, particularly as you mentioned earlier around the line-out. But the fact of the matter is, I don't agree that the guys gave up. And, I don't agree that and I think that there's always room for improvement. There was going to be room for improvement, and I see all those situations as opportunities, because it's an opportunity for us to actually get grounded again and not get ahead of ourselves. So I don't actually mind the criticism, and I think people, when you're passionate about your team and, you're passionate about wanting to see the Eagles get better, as am I. Ultimately, I am the ultimate Eagles fan, because, I'm coaching the team and I love these players, and I also want to get better. So I'm also irritated and annoyed when we don't do well and we don't do what we stick to doing. But the key thing is the character that was shown a week later, and the maturity that the players showed, and AJ and Bryce and Cam and Nate and the leadership group, how they stepped up to the plate and they actually just said, well, let's just fix this, and again, massive credit to them. But I mean, I don't mind the criticism. The criticism is, if it's valid and it's due, then we need to take it on the chin, and we need to be, we need to be mature about it. I mean, there's no problem with criticism, no issue with criticism whatsoever. But
yeah,
the
absolutely.
important thing is that we got to be big enough to be able to take it on the chin, and we got to man up the next week and do a better job. And I think we did. The big challenge we've got now is that Canada is over now, and that day at Glendale is over now, and now we've got a new challenge. And again, world class teams are the teams that are able to move past wins and losses, and then actually be able to get back onto task for the next job. And so that's what we're busy trying to do at the moment now. And I'm excited about the next challenge against Uruguay.
No, that's brilliant. And I agree with you 100%. That's the reason why I mentioned it. People running their mouth about criticizing players in a personal level. That's the issue I had. And I can see very clearly you have a passion and love for the team there, Gary, and you worry about your players. So there's no need to be defend that way, because we support you guys. But yeah, no, that's why I mentioned I don't think it's a perfect people to do that. Criticizing performance on the field is one thing, but also I like to say, Gary, from my perspective, I didn't see the players phoning it into St. John's. They tried to the end. And we got that, by the way, try at the end, and actually needed that try to close the gap to 13 points, which made it possible to walk away with the points in the aggregate. So that was brilliant. But yeah, no, you're right. Scott Lawrence with Rugby ATL, whenever I interview him, I talk to him post game. It's always, the next game. the next game. That's our focus. We may have just won a big game or we just got beaten. We got to focus on the next game. It sounds like you've got the same approach there. It's a tough season though for you this year. You got some big opponents. We were Twickenham with England. By the way, we haven't talked since then. What an absolutely brilliant performance in the second half by the Eagles. That was a lot of character too. And some people are like, well, yeah, but no, not yeah, but I know the British and Irish Lions are playing, but that was a top flight, talented England team that you guys played in the second half, and brilliant job outperforming them. A tough trip to Aviva. That was a little frustrating, I'm sure. So you got those two, Ireland and then England. Then you come back for the Canada. Then you got these 2 games against Uruguay. And then you've got the All Blacks here in DC. And you've also got Ireland. I mean, talk about a tough test season, but that's what we want, right? I mean, if we never play the top tier nation, so to speak, I know some people are offended by that. Other people like the term minnows, but if we never play the traditional rugby nations or powerhouses, how do we get better? And I think that's your approach, Gary. If I'm wrong, tell me. I mean, that's kind of what we're looking for, isn't it?
No, it is our approach, and I mean, again, it's a double-edged sword, because I'm looking for these type of fixtures. I mean, we were potentially going to play the Springboks before the British and Irish Lions series, and it was only because we couldn't get into South Africa over COVID that we ended up having to bin that, those plans as well. But yeah, we do want to be playing these teams. We want to get used to the pace of the game. I mean, you saw post England and very kind of what you said about England, but the truth of the matter is we couldn't follow that up. We couldn't follow that up a week later. And it wasn't the best Irish team that's available. And let's just be honest with that. And so again, we fell short. We fell short of that. I'm not necessarily saying we would have gone to the Aviva and beaten Ireland, but we should certainly not have conceded 70 points. And I think we should most definitely have done a hell of a lot better job as we did the week before. But again, what it showed is that level and that pace of rugby, we're not used to that yet. You know what I mean? And whilst the MLR is most definitely making significant strides for us as a country, until we start playing and stop getting beaten so severely by these top tier nations, we're not going to get any better. So it's a tough time at the moment now, but the tables will turn. We will grow as a group. The more times we're playing the Englands, the Irelands, the New Zealands of the world, the better we're going to become. And we showed it a couple of years ago when we were able to turn over Scotland, and we can turn over Samoa a couple of times. But what it shows us is that we've got a particular style of play, and when we stick to that and we particularly disciplined around that, we're a good team. When we go off script, okay, and we don't necessarily stick to that, then we get beaten quite easily. And so again, it's that learning curve that we're on at the moment now. That's pretty steep at the moment, but I mean, it's going to hopefully bear some fruit, particularly coming up to a World Cup in just over 2 years' time.
No, absolutely. I agree with 100% what you say there, Gary. It really is exactly what you're talking about there. So a little bit ago, when you were talking about all those kicks in the game, we were talking about some of the law changes. A couple comments came in. One was that 44 kicks by halftime. What is that, soccer? And the other one was someone said, well, Nas would be really happy. Nas Pota. Yeah, he'd love to kick the ball that much. That's funny stuff. But let me ask you a quick question about a couple players, if you can. I don't know if you can disclose or not, but Luke Carty, Marcel, are these guys okay? Are they on the mend? Are we going to see them back on the pitch? We haven't lost them, have we? Because I saw it looked like some tough injuries there.
No, they're all good. They're all good. Couple of knocks, couple of bruises. Marcel's still struggling with his shoulder. Luke had an ankle injury after the first game in St. John's, and then we didn't want to risk him in the second game as well. He'll come into contention again for selection. But no, they're all in camp, all training, touch wood, all fit and healthy at this stage. So hopefully we can keep it that way, and we can have a full squad of players to select from when we start our selection process for next week.
And I saw in that game in Glendale, from my perspective, it looked like Ruben was doing a great job distributing the ball. And I had visions of Joel Stransky there with that drop goal. That was exciting. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it was a strategy actually Ruben had brought up the week before, and had a couple of practice kicks and missed every single one of them. So I thought he was very brave to actually attempt it in the game, but that's what adrenaline does, and the beauty is that I'd rather he misses them on the training field than gets them on the playing field. So yeah, I thought it was a good suggestion of his, and I thought it was again, it's one way to hurt the team from a goal line 22, and yeah, there they are dotting the ball down from a very, very good tactical kick from AJ, and the next minute they're 3 points down. So, yeah, interesting phenomenon, but very happy we were on the right end of that one.
Yeah, I was like, Shh, Ruben, we have another scrum half on the bench. Maybe you don't want to do that. No. Just kidding. No, Paulie, who's in South Africa, said that, hey, look at Japan now. From the approach, it's right. Look at Japan is a top 10 team consistently now. They went undefeated in the pool stage. They went 3-1 the last time in 2015. They are consistently good, and they've got a great approach to it. It sounds like we're trying to build the same kind of idea there.
Yeah, we are. I mean, the big challenge is we need the amount of game time that Japan had. In Eddie's era and the build up to 2015, they had nearly 20 months together, and then Jamie Joseph had the same goodwill in 2019. At this stage, I'll be lucky if you've got 20 days together. So I mean, it's a challenge at the moment now. It's something we're all trying to work towards, and COVID didn't make it any easier. But our big challenge is we need to spend more time together. We need to be playing more games, a lot more games together, and familiarizing ourselves. And as we mentioned earlier, playing against the level of quality opposition. That exactly what happened with Eddie and in I beg your pardon, when he was managing Japan. He put them under that microscope. He took them to the UK, he took them to Europe, and he made them play against those teams. And as Paul just said now, quite rightly, the improvement was significant.
No, absolutely. It's absolutely amazing. The Brave Blossoms, and by the way, you were there in Japan. They were fantastic in Japan. They were fun to be around. Their games were competitive. I think they shocked Ireland and Scotland. They probably didn't expect to lose. They certainly expect to lose like they did, but well done by the Brave Blossoms. So Gary, before we wrap up, I just want to say one thing, and this is not making excuses, but people need to remember. Now, people are going to say, yeah, but everybody lost last year and everybody's just getting back in the swings because of the pandemic. Yes, but those European teams had the Six Nations, and they also had Pro 14 rugby. And so the guys got lots of playing time last year and this year, especially before they went into test matches. Whereas we did have a lot of guys who are Major League Rugby who play for the Eagles. And that certainly helped, as we've talked about in previous conversations. But you didn't have time with your team. I think you got together less than a week or about a week before the first test match in Twickenham. And that's a problem if you can't get guys together on the pitch. I mean, the Springboks got together for the first time about 2 weeks before their match against Georgia, and it showed they were a bit rusty. So, I mean, not to make excuses for anybody, but people just have to understand, if you don't have your team organized and you're able to work together as a team for at least a little bit of time, you're going to have a hard time sometimes getting out there on the pitch and being successful.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, again, as you say, I'm not necessarily looking for excuses here. I mean, I'd rather just look for solutions. But it was tough coming back after COVID, not actually having, been in the same room with the guys since the 2019 World Cup, which is nearly 20 months, was a challenge. But, we're back at it now, and guys are working hard, and that's really what our focus is. And luckily, we have been together for a couple of weeks now. So, there's no excuses now. Now we need to get on with the job at hand.
Well, and the job at hand is Uruguay on the 2nd in Glendale, I believe, correct?
Yes.
And then after that, the 9th of October. The one thing I'm a little confused before you go, Gary, is I thought that this was to decide who got the America's 1 position, but I'm kind of confused by media reporting. So if you play Uruguay for 2 games, is it like Canada, and whoever is the highest aggregate score becomes the America's number 1?
Yes. That's okay. Correct. Yeah.
All right. So we got that straight. But what happens to Uruguay then? Do they play whoever wins from the Canada-Chile series or something like that?
They play the winner of the Canada-Chile series for America's 2.
Okay. So Canada could still get the America's 2 position, or the USA could still get it, or Uruguay could get one of those teams, or Chile for that matter. Okay. So it's still wide open.
Should we lose, we'll have to play in July next year, and Canada and Chile and Uruguay. So all 4 teams are still in the mix. Yeah.
Well, rest assured, Gary, that ain't going to happen. You guys going to beat Uruguay. Going to have great performances here and on the road. By the way, I have a person who lives in Canada who's Uruguayan who will be at the game on the 9th, and he's going to call into my program live from the pitch. So we'll get some on-field reporting for that game. That'd be pretty cool. Well, Gary, as always, it's brilliant. Thank you so much for your time, for your honesty, and your willingness to talk about what's going on with USA Eagles rugby. I know a lot of people are huge Eagles fans, And some of us are huge Gary Gold fans. So let's just disclose that right here. And you're welcome back anytime. And thank you for your flexibility and your ability to come on and talk to us about this. Good luck with the test. I won't try to bug you while you're prepping for the test after this, but maybe after it's over, we get you back on when you got that America's One position.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. And again, to you and, the amazing listeners that you guys and or watchers that you have for the show. Just thank you very much for the support. Please come down to Glendale. A good couple of thousand people last time. The vibe and the spirit was amazing. And on September the 11th, and now it's October the 2nd, and our big challenge is we've got it the other way around now, where we're at home first. So we're under a bit of pressure that we got to get that scoreboard ticking. So it's going to be tough enough as it is, but we really appreciate the support. So thank you to all of you guys. It means a lot.
Well, that's a good way to point it too, because you had the advantage coming home. You knew what you had to get. You're on your home pitch. Now you're on your home pitch and you don't know. You got to get 30, you got to get 40, you got to get 50 points because you don't know what's going to happen on the road. But one quick question before we lose you there, Gary, and that's from Nick Muller. Nick Muller wants to see if you want to step out on that thin branch and make an All Blacks Springboks call for who's going to win Saturday. Are you willing to do that?
It's a tough call, that. Neutral territory in Townsville, out of all places. Whoever would have thought that you're playing your 100th test between those two great nations in a place like Townsville? But so again, not having home supporters, I suppose, will work against them. I saw this morning that Aaron Smith's not playing, Whitelock's not playing, and a wounded Springbok can be a dangerous animal. This group have got enough in them to know what to do. I suppose a betting man would say that it's going to be the All Blacks, and a risky man would say it's probably going to be the Springboks. So I like to live a little bit dangerously. So I'll say the Boks will sneak it.
Oh, that's brilliant. So Gary Gold living dangerously right there from Glendale, Colorado, taking the pick on the Springboks. I'm going to say the Springboks too, even though I haven't been particularly kind, but I haven't been one of those people who've been excoriating the players. Boy, if you think the Eagles came in for some criticism, the Boks have come in for a lot of criticism from Faf de Klerk to across the board. But good luck to the Boks this weekend. Gary Gold, it's a distinct pleasure to have you on once again, sir. You're a gentleman, and best of luck on the 2nd and on the 9th. And let's get that America's One position for Rugby World Cup 2023.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks a lot for tuning into this special feature live stream with USA Eagles head coach Gary Gold. Very forthright, very honest assessment. A lot of stuff out there. By the way, I'm the one who raised the topics about the laws, and I just want to get Gary's take on it if you want to comment on it. And because I think fans are confused, and so I want to see if the teams and the coaching staff understood what was going on. And so Gary commented on that. He's also scratching his head a little bit, it appears. And you could see that Gary seemed very concerned and maybe a little defensive about criticism of his players. And that's legitimate. I agree with him. That was one issue I took with people singling out players and that sort of thing. Criticism of performance is one thing. And so I want to thank Gary for that. But as Gary said, the next step is what matters. And that's Uruguay on the 2nd of October in Rugby Town, USA, Glendale, Colorado, where the Eagles will be playing Uruguay to see who moves on to be the number 1 seed for the Americas in the Rugby World Cup. And they'll put them in Pool A. So there you have it, folks. So once again, it's always a pleasure to have Gary Gold on the program. He's awesome, quite the gentleman. And he's also a very honest guy, which is really nice. So thanks a lot. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to smash the like button. Be sure to leave a few comments on the video.